Hello and welcome to our own devices. This time, again, we're going to talk about something new and something maybe we don't discuss enough. That is the element of human error when you're talking about cybersecurity. And maybe it's not just cybersecurity. There are other places too where human error is often responsible for creating something really horrible. But we don't discuss it because it's usually it's usually that we talk about threat actors and all of that. But it is also the case that we often do leave a back door open. So to talk about that, we have this time with us Anshuman Sharma, who is Associate Director of CSIRT and Investigative Response for the APJ region at Verizon Business. Anshuman, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Nandagopal, for the opportunity.
So, Anshuman, I saw this very interesting data point which has come out of Verizon, which is that 74% of all data breaches or security breaches involve have a human hand in it. So, can you just explain how does this happen? What types of human error happen here?
Okay, so when we talk about human error, we can actually divide into few categories. Number one category is social engineering, which obviously phishing includes into that. The second category is error that can happen, and error can again further subdivided in error in configuration or error in misdelivery, and then it can be a privilege misuse. Now, to give an example of each one of them, when we talk about social engineering, as I mentioned, the typical thing is phishing. And what we have also started to see on a business email compromise, there is a huge spike of almost close to more than 50%. Obviously, business compromise is easy money, where once an email has been compromised, it can be used in pretexting, which is again almost 50% as we see on a rise. And when we talk about pretexting, it is majority have been used to target your finance departments in order to get a fake invoice approvals. And with the phishing kits coming into picture, which basically sits as a proxy between a victim and a cloud-based email service provider, you do not even need to steal any kind of a two-factor authentication. It is just you need someone to click on that first phishing email, which will direct you to the authenticated website, but the phishing kit will be acting as a proxy, sitting in between, listening to the entire communication. And once the second factor authentication is done, which many of the organizations believe it's a silver bullet, once that is done, and the session token is assigned, the phishing kit immediately takes that session token and logs into an unauthorized way, in an unauthorized manner, or I would say unauthorized session is obtained, and you are in the account of that particular user. Now, one of the things that is majorly done is you immediately go and want to register your own device for a second factor authentication, because after 8 hours, 10 hours, whatever has been set, the session expires, and you again have to send that phishing email now to someone in order to have your control back. So there is one common thing that we have seen the bad guys do. So the first entry point is this, and once you are inside that particular account, which is majority of the cases have specifically been targeted to finance departments, and then they take a fake a real trail email and use that with their own look-alike domains that they have created. So for example, if it is abc.xyz.com, they will use abc-xyz.com. So instead of a dot, they will use hyphen, which is very difficult to detect. And specifically why I mentioned finance, because finance interact with a lot of vendors, and even there is a reliance that once you see an email says this is an external email, you should know that it is originating externally. But in case of finance, they are most of the time interacting with external emails.
Yeah.
So having that as a control may not work only for the finance department. And once they enter into that whole trail of email, they create fake invoices asking for changing the bank account details, and then the fake invoice payment happens. One of the recommendations that we have always talked about to our customers is strengthen your process around changing or request for change of bank account details, because that is not normal that any vendor will do all the time. So that's on the phishing side. And apart from phishing is more to do stealing your credentials, where you don't have 2FA or lack of two-factor authentication and they log in. The second scenario on the human error is error in misconfiguration. A lot of the big data breaches that we have investigated, it is almost most of the time related to a misconfiguration. A simple example, if you are using an Apache as a web server, you leave a default credential configuration as Tomcat, which gives you an admin panel access to the server. And then you can log in and upload keyloggers and get more credentials. Then logging into the environment, you can move laterally, you can dump credentials to do privilege escalations. So biggest of the data breaches is associated in that direction with regard to the error in misconfiguration. Error in misdelivery, which is again very common these days. In fact, error in misdelivery, if you just see the error category, has actually leading the error in misconfiguration. And misdelivery is something, is I was supposed to send an email, let's say to Rajan at Verizon.com, and I did not follow my organization protocol to protect that data. And an unprotected data is disclosed to Rajan at some other organization. Now, if you talk to privacy experts, even if the person recipient knows you well and they delete the data and they confirm you that has been deleted, but that data has at one point in time has got out of your control. And once the data which is not protected gone out of your control, it has to be considered a compromise. So these are few things, and the privilege misuse can be both in an authorized and an unauthorized way. I can take an example of one of the cases in which one of the managers was expecting a promotion in the IT department. There was a merger happened and he was not promoted and he got disgruntled, and he thought of taking a revenge using his privileges, but the organization was using a privilege identity management solution. So what this guy did is he logged into the privilege identity management solution, took by unauthorized credentials, and he logged into multiple servers. And in each server, he created a local user account and then added that local user into the local admin account of the server. And then he was not using the privileged identity management solution, but logging into all the servers using that locally created admin account. And then he created batch files in multiple servers, which was supposed to execute on 31st of March and wipe the entire data from the server. Luckily for the organization, the script failed multiple times. And one of the developer working on the system identified that error. And when he looked deep into it, he realized that someone actually deliberately are trying to sabotage the servers. And privilege misuse can also happen if an admin account get compromised, either via phishing or by deployment of some malware. And then those accounts can be misused for carrying out bad activities. So this is what we have seen when we say that 74% is human error.
So basically, the IT manager was somebody who should not have got the appraisal, right? Because he could not execute even that attack well. So
On a lighter note, yes, it can be very well said on that. But this organization again was missing some basic level controls. First of all, if I'm an administrator, if I'm already having a privileged identity management solution, why somebody is logging into a server with a local admin account?
Yeah.
And once a local admin account was created, it should have sent an alert to the SOC that somebody actually has created a local admin account, and it should not be allowed. This could have easily detected at that point itself. And yeah, as on a lighter note, we talked about that shouldn't have been given appraisal or promotion because he couldn't write the batch script correctly, which should have executed.
So this also brings into light the question that, like, are companies always looking for things happening from outside their domain, which is basically maybe a smaller percentage of the threat possibility, right? Like, you should be looking inwards to, but is there enough awareness within companies that maybe you need to have the right protocols in place, and even the right training in place so that these kind of things don't happen? And the checks and balances, how do you, like in this case of this IT manager, for instance, how do you have checks and balances to oversee a lot of the things that happen on the ground?
I think the one single word needs to be called is the cyber hygiene. Basic hygiene is missed. Like I took an example, it is a very simple way to detect it. Somebody is creating a local account on the server and then adding into the admin. There are specific Windows event IDs that get generated. Somebody need to configure a use case, and this gets triggered as alarm bells in the security operations center that why somebody is creating a local admin when we already have a privileged identity management solution. Second thing, most of the IT admins, they have their own administrative accounts. Why they are logging into server using local administrator account or service accounts? Whereas we all know that most of the organization have these local admin account passwords same as on all the servers, unless and until you are using some security solution like Microsoft Labs, for example, which I've seen commonly used, which helps you to create a unique a password for even for the local administrator account. But if you are not using that, if your local admin account password is compromised, then you have a free pass to log into each and every server. Coming back to the training as well, I always believe that training material has to be created customized to departments. As I used an example, if you are just overall telling the organization that look out for this word external in your email, and then you should know that this is an externally originated email. But finance department is used to see so many emails that originates externally that it is easier for them to miss. So you have to give them more training pertaining to that. As I mentioned, getting a phishing email is not a problem. It may, because there are many occasions when your technical defenses will miss some of the phishing emails. As a human error, you may fail to detect those phishing emails. I have seen one of our customer running a campaign where they recently adopted a recognizing model that where you can go and recognize people. And immediately after adopting that model, 3 months down the line, they initiated a phishing drill using that. They never had more than single percent digit in where the number of people had fallen prey to phishing, always around 6 to 7%. That time, it was more than 50% where the user actually clicked, because it was something relatable. Oh, somebody's recognizing me. Let me see who has recognized me. So it is to do with the human mind. So whenever a change is done in the organization, training needs to be provided with respect to that. And departmental specific training, strengthening the process that overall, look, if a phishing email is received by me, who's a finance department, and if I acted on it and started replying and interacting with that, but till the time I have not fallen a prey that the person is asking me to change the bank account details, what is the process I have around that to change the bank account details? I have also seen a customer having a process that we need to validate the claim that whether the bank account has, if there is a genuine request. But the problem that they were doing is that they were replying to the same email asking that whether you have initiated a request to change in the bank account details, or they were actually calling on the number that is mentioned on an email. All that has been created by the bad guy. And they will always say, yes, we have initiated that request. So one of a minor process level change, which they actually included in their training, is that whenever you receive any such kind of a request, you need to have an authorized list of point of contact, either create a fresh email, not just copying the email address from the previous email, but typing it out or copying it from your known template, or simply calling the point of contact from or at the known number that have you actually raised such a request. Because if you don't transfer the money, which is the final objective, you win the battle. Either when they were successful in penetrating your internal environment via phishing and all, but the final objective is not met, and that is where we win the game. So customized trainings pertaining to departments, and whenever there is a change, which is a major change happen in an organization, a delta training to be provided. This is some of the things that, and the third one I would say, specifically with IT and security folks, a domain specific training, because things are really moving very, very fast. When we talk about artificial intelligence and machine learning, it is really moving very fast. And the bad news is the threat actors are actually leveraging AI. When an organized criminal who has specific tools of choices, specific method of compromising an organization, if they really want to scale up, in the past, they were relying on man force, but now they are not. They have artificial intelligence backing them up. But how much as we as good guys leveraging artificial intelligence and machine learning, taking into consideration also the ICS SCADA systems, that how many IT folks actually understand OT technology. And OT technology, we have to take it with a pinch of salt that this technology is quite old. Security was never in mind when this technology was built in. Whether you talk about protocols like Modbus, they were not created with security in mind. Clear text communication happens over these protocols. And this convergence of IT and OT is definitely is bit strenuous, because IT is all about confidentiality and OT is all about availability. So not understanding each other is key. So including all these as part of the training, which is domain specific, will definitely help to bring this human error number a bit down. We'll definitely never be able to eliminate that, but at least it will come in the manageable figures.
How do you explain OT? It's not a term I think most of our readers, listeners will be familiar with.
So it is operational technology, which is most of the common is associated with industrial control systems or SCADA systems, which you manage remotely, and like your PLCs of any kind of manufacturer, like the sensors, like the historian systems. Historian systems are basically that captures the historical data. For example, you have a pressure management system where you are gauging the pressure in an industrial plant. So in order to know how historically that pressure within the plant has behaved, it will be available in that historian systems. And all, as mentioned, all the PLCs and all, they are all part of operational technology, which is different definitely than IT.
Is it becoming difficult to have this management of passing on this knowledge to the workforce, especially since we are still, a lot of companies have maybe permanently moved to work from home for a certain percentage of their employees, right? You still have a lot of companies still figuring out when they will want to come back to office full time, but you still have a significant part of the workforce which is working from home. Is it difficult in such a scenario to manage this?
I would not say it is difficult to manage in that way, but it is, first of all, you have to really come up and inculcate into the employees that going forward is going to be a hybrid model, and these are the steps that we have taken to safeguard us, safeguard our customers, and safeguard you. Once it becomes relatable that yes, we are part of it, and we have to really clearly send the message that security is not an IT or a information security or cybersecurity responsibility. It is everyone's responsibility. Our strongest chain is as strong as the weakest link. Human has always been said as a weakest link. I believe that human can actually act as a firewall, protecting the organization with these proper trainings. Now, the question was majorly on how difficult it is to provide this training. These are not difficult, as because we are really going in a hybrid model where we are used to learning online now. It was not that we want in-person trainings. Yes, in-person training is always helpful, where you have someone that can guide you. If you have a specific problem, they can help you. And remotely, yes, it may be challenging, but it is not impossible. But what I have seen lacking is on the training, which should not, yes, there is a generic level training that everyone has to attend, but then you really need to have find out that what are some of the departmental requirements, and then providing those trainings. Technical trainings, if you talk about, you go to any platform, there are n number of trainings available. I think organizations are investing big time in onboarding these platforms, whether it is LinkedIn Learning or whether it is Udemy or many other platforms like that. And if you go, there are n number of trainings available on IT OT convergence, ICS SCADA systems, and all that. But again, it needs to be built as a rigor that yeah, you need to learn, because we lived in a digital age. Now it is an AI age. All the millennials are actually going to live in the artificial intelligence age. And I would say there was one question asked, that is AI going to take our jobs? My take on that is AI is not going to take our job, but a person with the knowledge of AI is definitely going to take our job. So that's where the differentiator is. So training is definitely very, very important. Online training is a very good medium to do it, because you can record those sessions. People can go back again and again to do those kind of trainings, but it has to be specific to the requirement of the recipients.
So I have one last question before we wind up. You mentioned how humans are the weakest link, but given how we work, they are also each human is also a new threat surface, right? It's a point of entry for a malicious actor. So given that kind of scale that brings in, especially when people are working from home and using their own devices, for instance, right, where a lot of other kinds of vulnerabilities come in. Do you think artificial intelligence can also help by sort of customizing the response, depending on the user, depending on the kind of threat that is coming in, depending on the kind of company you're trying to protect?
Oh yes, definitely. AI can definitely help to set up those benchmarks, whether it is via machine learning, supervised learning, or unsupervised learning. Artificial intelligence definitely can help to detect those behavioral hiccups that happens. That this is the artificial intelligence has to set up that this is normal, and whenever there is something, this is a deviation, then that is definitely not normal. I again take a very simple example. Most of the users in the organization, whether they are working from home or they're working in a hybrid model, the tendency to download data is huge.
Yeah.
But what is the probability of uploading a huge amount of data? That is something not normal, and that can be very easily picked up.
Yeah.
Threat actors have moved in a different way, that they have realized that if I'm trying to upload 50 GB worth of data, it is detectable because that is something out of ordinary. What they do, they divide the data in a small chunks of, let's say, 5 MB, and they upload it continuously. Now, this is not normal behavior for a user to continuously uploading 5 MB data every hour. So 5 MB now, then 5 MB after 30 minutes, that 5 MB after 30 minutes. This is not normal. This goes against the pattern. And these kind of patterns are definitely very easily detectable by artificial intelligence. I think a lot of solutions, whether it is endpoint detection and response as EDR, or NDR as a network detection and response, or user behavioral analytics, these are all definitely very helpful for the organizations to understand a human behavior and understanding those patterns, which are definitely a deviation.
Anshuman, thanks a lot for opening our minds into this new space, or I shouldn't say new space. It's something that's always been there, but maybe we don't put special interest on, or special attention to. Thanks a lot for being on the show. You were listening to Anshuman Sharma from Verizon Business.
Thank you very much, Rajan. It was a privilege and an honor to be on this channel. Thank you.
So our show will be back again next week with another guest and more knowledge. Till then, you can listen to our own devices anywhere you listen to your podcast.